Here in the southeast corner of London, Ontario, still well inside the city limits, is a pond. On the surface, it's nothing special, just a little leftover from the last ice age 15,000 years ago. But studied over a 9-month period from April to December, this pond becomes a fascinating place to witness the changing seasons and the parade of creatures that accompany them. Nothing special, did we say? Look again. There's a lot happening here at the pond. Late March. The first rays of spring gently warm the pond, still partly frozen after the long winter. The first guests arrive, their noisy honks signaling the changing seasons. For the resident muskrat, the newcomers are a welcome sign of spring. But the rotting ice makes a chore of finding a table to enjoy a fresh meal of pond plants. The pond has at least 2 muskrats, which have been living for the winter in a burrow along the bank. With a ready supply of cattails, water plants, grasses, fish, and the odd frog, the pond is perfect habitat for this giant member of the mouse family. By mid-April, the maple and oak trees around the pond are in bud, and the pond is free of ice. Spring is really here. More company. A dozen or so Canada geese will call the pond home. Several hundred more will stop in for a rest before flying farther north. The pond will get crowded and boisterous. Several members of the marsh duck family have returned from the south too. What sets marsh ducks apart is their ability to take flight straight into the air without the running start geese need. An early April morning brings out the songbirds, chirping for some company. It's a wonderful time for a swim, too, the muskrat decides. And what's that they say about the early bird catching the worm? The sight of a robin bobbing along on a freshly thawed ground is one of the most fabled signs of spring around the pond. Over the next few weeks, this fellow will find a mate, build a nest, and start a family. Right now, though, he just wants something fresh for breakfast. And after breakfast, it's time for another little sing-along. It's May. By now, everywhere around the pond is bursting forth in lush green. Overnight, special guests have arrived. Mergansers take a rest day after a flight from the southern United States. Unlike most ducks, the merganser has a long hooked bill and dives for food, minnows, and other small fish. It nests in trees, another unusual habit. Already a couple, this pair will spend the summer on a clear northern lake, but not together. Inseparable now, once their chicks are hatched, the dark feathered male will be long gone. The days are getting longer now, and warmer. Spring flowers are blooming, great profusions of golden Alexander. Sprinkles of wild strawberries. Violets and purple. And the rarer white. And the saucy lily of the valley. For the birds, there's a certain urgency in the air that you can literally hear. The loud and repeated call of the male in search of a mate. Babies need to be born soon, so they will be mature enough for the migration south just 5 months from now. The mating game makes the geese especially agitated and sometimes quite angry. The arrival of another animal, humans, makes the wildlife edgy too. As soon as the nice weather arrives, the pond is a popular place for urban sportsmen who want to hone their outdoor skills. The pond covers about 2.5 hectares, about 5 acres, and is about 4 meters deep at the center, big enough to sustain a permanent fish population. Every weekend the fishermen come, with their dogs and best adventure outfits, and their dreams of catching the big one. And here's proof there are fish in the pond, although this little smallmouth bass is not ready for the frying pan just yet. Over the next year it will grow to 2 pounds and a foot long. The pond is also home to some trophy-sized carp. Another unexpected occupant of the pond is a beaver. The pond is well suited to a beaver, but it's rare to find one this far south in Ontario and inside city limits. Finely chiseled alder tree stumps around the pond suggest this beaver has been living here a while. Beaver are the largest rodents in North America. Usually they live in matriarchal colonies, although this one seemed all alone. Unlike the bear-sized saber-toothed beaver that became extinct with the close of the last ice age 15,000 years ago, back when this pond was born, the modern beaver survived climate change because it was an engineer, able to build dams and create vast wetlands more suited to its needs. The average beaver weighs up to 20 to 40 kilograms and will live up to 15 years in the wild. They are active from dusk till dawn, building dams and felling trees to nibble on the tender twigs and leaves. Water lilies are another favorite food for the beaver. The plant's high sodium levels make it an important source of salt. By mid-June, the lilies are in flower, attracting insects to assist in fertilization. The plants will produce 600 seeds per flower. Ah yes, mid-June. The lazy, hazy days of summer have arrived, and with them a whole new bouquet of wild flowers. Blue phlox, common cinquefoil, yarrow, yellow iris, blue flag or wild iris, ox-eye daisy, yellow sweet clover, teal all mint, buttercup, and blackberries just starting to turn. Pretty flowers have a purpose, of course. It's part of a plant's strategy to attract bees and other insects to help in the pollination process. From pollination comes, well, fruit and seeds. And the bonus for us, if this bee does her job, might be a nice jar of honey come fall. By mid-August, the pond is peaceful and still, and a magnet for weekend canoeists. The fishing is lousy, but the scenery is splendid. On shore, another of the permanent residents is moving about. This is the groundhog. It is a rather solitary critter, or perhaps critteress, that spends most of the summer fattening up on grasses and leaves. Come October, it will be hibernating in its nearby den. Groundhogs are terrific diggers, easily and quickly moving almost half a ton of dirt to make a burrow. Home underground will have at least 2 entrances, several additional escape hatches, and a connecting network of summer and winter living spaces. As September arrives, the pond is at peace, but new forces of nature are already at work. The chill morning air signals the coming of fall. The first hint of red in the woods surrounding the pond confirms it. For this young female mallard duck, time is now precious. She has less than a month to fatten up for the long migration to Florida. So don't bother her right now. There's something mighty good under all this mud. The pond's abundance is more visible and colorful as the seasons change again. Creatures big and small are gathering the harvest. Everywhere around the pond, fall is now evident. The maples are the first to show off their new colors, but soon every tree is ablaze. Throw in a little wind, and there's color blowing everywhere. This downy woodpecker decides it's the perfect setting for dinner a la carte, or maybe a la tree trunk. In mid-October, announced by the ever-present honking, the first of the migrating Canada geese returned to the pond. This little spot, surrounded as it is by lush suburban lawns, makes a perfect resting place on the flight from northern Canada to Mexico. Migrating flocks are made up of several family groups, with the older members leading the way. Canada geese fly in a V formation because it cuts wind resistance. In the air, they keep track of each other by honking, but the young making their first migration are especially noisy. They can fly at up to 85 kilometers an hour, 1,000 meters high. After covering 300 kilometers or more at a stretch, they usually land on a small lake or large beaver pond near a forested area for a rest, sometimes for a week or so, until the weather turns colder. And then, a few minutes after sunrise, on the last day of October, after much honking about, the first wave takes off, circles the pond, and turns south. Minutes later, a second gaggle follows. Within half an hour, all 200 geese have flown away. The pond is now empty. Winter is near. By mid-November, the trees are bare and the winds are biting. The groundhog is hibernating. The beaver and the muskrats have tucked into their lodges to wait out the cold. As December arrives, the temperature is now well below freezing much of the time. The pond is slowly covered by ice, frozen until next April. On the last day of the year, the first snow of winter finally touches the pond. For a moment, the world is clean and fresh and quiet. But just for a moment. Even in winter there are folks poking about. This is home to many creatures. In winter, some are busy still. Some are sleeping right now, and some are visiting down south. As they say, whatever the season, there's a lot going on here at the pond.